Hi, I'm Bethany or Bones Abrego, and this is my project for Philosophy of Education in Action. I chose What is a Good School? So, I believe a good school is one that not only recognizes the legacies of oppressive pedagogies towards students, but actively challenges them through democratic teachings and the empowerment of students with diverse identities. In this way, good schools strive for the total dismantling of the academic system that disempower and dehumanizes students by restructuring ways that we practice care for our students, dominant ideologies, and common curricula. Prior beliefs. I used to believe that what made a good school was one that had one or two teachers who were passionate about their subjects, critique curricula, and who saw even their most struggling students as capable, unique individuals with their own passions, strengths, and lived experiences outside of school. So between the ages of 11 and 16, I was in foster care, going back and forth between living with my mom and extended family throughout LA. I had always loved school, but at this time, school felt like more like an escape from the trauma I was enduring rather than a space for academic growth. At school, I got to see my friends every day, participate in track, create art, and engage with different subjects. School, at the very least, was safe. In high school, I began to meet teachers who wanted to inspire authentic learning through passionate teaching and get to know the real me. These teachers motivated me to share my work, speak up for my beliefs, and affirm my confidence as a capable and unique person in the world. These few teachers also kept their door open if I needed somebody to talk to, all things I had never experienced in schooling up until that point. These teachers also actively went against curriculum, saying they didn't properly reflect our identities or current reality, and inspired us to collectively fight injustice. Shift in thinking. Now I realize that good schools seek to empower students' unique intersecting identities through authentic caring, sustaining a culturally responsive pedagogy, dismantling oppressive ideologies, challenge deficit thinking inside and outside of academics. A good school is one that commits itself to creating a more socially just, equitable, and caring world through its students and faculty. In order for this to occur, teachers need to firstly want to get to know their students. Mall and Gonzalez argue that when a child enters a classroom, they come with unique funds of knowledge they have obtained through their experiences, home life, cultures, and interests. In this way, no student is a blank slate. However, the legacies of pedagogy often other students for their unique identities. Frameworks such as racial linguistics examine the way students are taught to assimilate to white social norms at school, labeling students of color who speak another language as incompetent academic learners. However, when schools start seeing all students as good, unique, capable human beings, students begin to connect with teachers and authentically engage with the class. I realize that if we don't meet students where they're at, they will never truly step foot in the classroom. From here, classrooms can start to engage with culturally responsive pedagogies that positively reframe the way we care about our students. Lanson Billings states the issue with curricula is that, quote, educators traditionally have attempted to insert culture into the education instead of inserting education into the culture. This inspired me to look further into the ways I can empower my students. The author suggests ideas like allowing students to turn in assignments in their own home languages, allowing students to perform their favorite songs to analyze as a class, critiquing school inequities like textbook funding, etc. This shifted my thinking towards a radical schooling. So, continuous critical reflection. Henry's story in Relearning the Language of Care made me realize that having multiple marginalized identities and working in a field that's supposed to support students doesn't automatically make me a safe person. Quote, I became increasingly agitated with him and soon only viewed his presence as a disruption. When was the last time I wondered what was behind those wandering eyes? This reading made me realize that I could still develop biases against my students. It makes me think about all the biases I may not even realize I have. At this moment, I feel wary around people who are higher on the power wheel, wealthy, white, religious, neurotypical. But what happens when my students have those identities? I also realize I have more to learn about how identities like Asian Americans are targeted in schools. As a teacher, I realize I must commit to learning and growing like my students and make sure I don't fall into traps of dominant ideologies. So, my artifact is a color wheel seating chart. It's right here on the right. You can imagine this to be a paper. It is for first grade, which is the group I'm going to be working with. So, it's a first grade classroom seating chart for the very first day of school. Because schooling traditionally treats students as non-autonomous and dissuades teachers from authentically engaging with students, my artifact gets to know my first grade students through a fun first grade activity that will physically shape our class throughout the year. So, on the first day of class, I imagine that we're all sitting on the rainbow classroom rug in a circle. I'll introduce the color wheel, having students pick their favorite color and share why they chose it, including myself. I can go first to get the ball rolling, and then we'll go in a circle. Once each student has shared, parentheses, this artifact requires patience and a lot of caring, then I'll introduce the seating chart, which pairs them in groups of six by their favorite color, whether they picked a primary, secondary, or tertiary color for their favorite. Since there won't be an equal number of favorites, two of the table groups can be mixed or the leftover color table. However, let's say most kids choose a primary color, then we can make three primary table groups or mix colors in one table. It's all based on their preferences, so the seating chart isn't necessarily strict. I'll explain that throughout the year. We'll rotate groups a few times to get to know each other. By the end of the year, we'll all be a rainbow of colors. I then add that much of our learning will take place together on our classroom rug. There will also be the calming corner available for whenever a student needs time or space to regulate. There will be a small sofa, a weighted blanket, stress toys, and some noise-canceling headphones. The only rule is to raise your hand or let me know that you need that space. In this way, our first day sets up the commitment needed to engage with my students authentically and patiently through connective teaching activities. And with the Common Corner, I'm reminded that my students are human every single day. We all have hard days, and because of that, all of my students deserve that love and care. Through activities like this, at our classroom setting, my students will be encouraged to use their voice, advocate for their needs, and connect with one another. So, yeah, I think that's a good starting point for my artifact, but yeah, you can let me know what you think. And yeah, this is pretty much the end of my presentation. This is the references page, and yes, thank you so much.